Peoples of the worldwide federated internet. What's good? I don't know if any of you other podcasters have this experience. I can sit around all day, nobody calls until I start podcasting. I had a conversation today with a young lady that had a moment of questioning in her life. She grew up Catholic, and we were talking about the Bible, and she said she'd begin to question the Bible, and she'd begin to question the very foundation of what she thought as far as spiritual truth. And I told her there was nothing wrong with that. And I think she was a little bit shocked at my answer. I think sometimes when people have questions, we tend to ridicule these people. And I told her, anything you believe that's true and right and worth your faith, if it's really rooted and grounded in truth, then there's no problem with asking questions. None at all. The only caveat I'd added is you have to make sure those questions are rooted in honesty, because many people have questions, but those questions are more centered around falsehoods than anything. They want to do something, or they want to destroy something, or they want to do something that if they hold to their beliefs, they wouldn't be able to do. That's a whole nother topic. But I explained to her that there's nothing wrong with questioning the foundation of what you believe. That's how you get to the root of what you believe. And of course, there comes a point, as I explained before, that there's some things you just have to accept by faith. But everybody has those moments, as I explained. But what I notice is there's a growing, sentiment around the Bible and biblical things. And it may just be that this is something I'm noticing more now because videos pop up on your feed, different things pop up on your feed. There's a video that has surfaced, an old video of Joe Rogan questioning the Bible, questioning Christianity. Here's the thing I found interesting. This is something I told the young lady as well. Before I got saved, I never thought about tolerance. After I got saved, I noticed something. The people who claim to be the most tolerant, they will tolerate many things. They'll tolerate other religions, people's lifestyles, people's life choices. But the one thing they absolutely will not tolerate is the Bible and Christianity. I noticed that. I find that interesting, and I don't believe that that is an accident. The truth is the one thing that if there's anything people are going to question, it's the truth, especially if it runs contrary to what they want to do. So I kind of expected that. But in our conversation, I pretty much dealt with getting to the truth of what the Bible actually says. And one of the things that she had some wrestling with is the inception of the country, slavery, and the fact that some of the slave owners used the Bible. And I explained to her, she may have known this, I don't know, but I explained to her that there was something called the slave Bible. Now, in the slave Bible, there were books, passages, and sections of the Bible removed. The sections that were removed were sections that had a slave had access to these things and read these things, they would have known that what the slave masters were doing was antithetical to what the Bible actually taught. So in saying that, I expressed to her that there's nothing wrong with your question, What you have to understand is you have to get to the actual truth of the matter. And there's nothing wrong with investigation. There's nothing wrong with you having a moment where you question the foundation of what you believe, but you have to approach it from an honest heart, and you have to be willing to actually search for truth. And you in many ways you have to put what you want aside. Because if I have a question and the only basis for my question is I want to believe something else, then I'm going to see whatever it is that I want to see. That's why when I'm doing research for different topics, especially when it comes to archaeology and the Bible, I tend to be very cautious about latching on to something because I want to believe it, right? Some archaeologist says he discovers X, Y, and Z, and it's from the Bible. And the tendency is I want to believe it. So because I want to believe it so bad, I tend to be more critical of whatever it is that archaeologist says, because I want to get to truth, not biased by my opinion. I know one of my long intros, but I thought it was real helpful to me, those thoughts today. So I thought maybe they would be helpful to you. Anyway, returning to the book of Exodus, chapter 4 and verse 13, let's get into this. And he said, O my Lord, send, I pray thee, by the hand of him whom thou wilt send. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses, and he said, Is not Aaron the Levite thy brother? I know that he can speak well, and also, behold, he cometh forth to meet thee, and when he seeth thee, he will be glad in his heart, and thou shalt speak unto him, and put words in his mouth, and I will be with thy mouth, and with his mouth, and will teach you what ye shall do, and he shall be thy spokesman unto the people, and he shall be to thee instead of a mouth, and thou shalt be to him instead of God. So Moses again was trying to get out of being God's messenger, headed down to Egypt to let the king of Egypt know that God wants him to let his people free. Moses did not feel like he was adequate to do it. And most of that, in my opinion, was based around the fear that if he went down to Egypt, he was going to be killed. Because you remember the circumstances in which Moses left. He killed an Egyptian. Word got out that he killed an Egyptian. And Pharaoh at the time, the king of Egypt, he wanted Moses' head. So Moses left. And that's how he ended up in Midian, getting married, Jethro being his father-in-law. So Moses, out of fear and maybe other things, maybe fear of being killed and fear of feeling like he couldn't complete the task, he was trying to get out of it. And if you notice how God dealt with Moses, he was angered with Moses, but he was also patient with Moses, and he gave Moses a way out, and he answered his questions. Every time Moses thought, well, what about this? God answered his question. Well, what about this? Well, I don't know how to do this. God answered his question and let Moses know that he can do whatever it is he set Moses out to do. It was going to be done. The thing I like about that is, if you want to know more about God, the best advice I can give, this has been helpful to me. I can't tell you that it would 100% sure be helpful to you, but I'm pretty sure it will be. Read the Old Testament, read the New Testament, pay attention to how God dealt with different people throughout these books, and that will give you a very good idea of who God is, right? Just as when God was telling Moses, I am, tell them that I am has sent you. God was explaining to Moses that who he is who he is, right? As simple as that sounds, or maybe that sounds complicated. If you want to know who God is, look at how he has dealt with people throughout the Bible, you'll get a better idea. Better to do that than to base your perception of God on something arbitrary, on something you made up in your own head. You may go drastically wrong doing that. Verse 17, thou shalt take this rod in thine hand wherewith thou shalt do signs. And Moses went and returned to Jethro his father-in-law, and said unto him, let me go, I pray thee, and return unto my brethren which are in Egypt, and see whether they be yet alive. And Jethro said to Moses, go in peace. Here's what's funny. I read that and I said, why did Moses say that he wanted to see if they were yet alive? God just told Moses through the discourse before this, the cry of the children of Israel, the Hebrew people, has come up to God. He's heard them, and he's going to have mercy on them, and he's going to send Moses to Egypt to be their deliverer. Clearly they're alive. Why did Moses say this to Jethro? Could it be that Moses was trying to play upon the heartstrings of Jethro in hopes that Jethro would say, no, don't go unless something happens to you? He was looking for a way out. Possible. Not saying guaranteed, but I think it's possible that's what's going on. But none of that will be happening because Jethro says, go on in peace. No way out there. Verse 19, and the Lord said unto Moses in Midian, go, return into Egypt, for all the men are dead which sought thy life. Now what's interesting is God didn't tell him beforehand that these people were dead, the people that sought Moses' life. Maybe there was a space of time in between all of this happening and him going to Jethro to leave. I don't know that for a fact. Because a lot of times in the Old Testament, sometimes there's a length of time between things that's not necessarily stated. I don't think that's what happened here. I think that Moses, was simply told that these people who sought his life are no longer alive, to further give Moses comfort and going down to Egypt. So he has no excuse at that point. And Moses took his wife and his sons and set them upon an ass, and he returned to the land of Egypt. And Moses took the rod of God in his hand. Interesting that it's called the rod of God at that moment. Don't know the significance. Might come back to that at a later date, Lord willing. And the Lord said unto Moses, when thou goest to return into Egypt, see that thou do all those wonders before Pharaoh, which I have put in thine hand, but I will harden his heart that he shall not let the people go. Now, that's extremely interesting, and I don't know exactly how to deal with that. I have some thoughts about the hardening of Pharaoh's heart. One of the thoughts I have is you could, and some have seen this as some arbitrary God taking this person and hardening his heart for no reason at all. What I believe happened, taking the greater context of the entire Bible and the different Bible doctrines, what I believe happened is that God allowed Pharaoh to go down that hardening path. Instead of having any restraint, God let him do his thing. No restraint. And Pharaoh went full force with a hardened heart. I think that's what happened biblically. And thou shalt say unto Pharaoh, thus saith the Lord, Israel is my son, even my firstborn. A lot of pictures in there. Verse 23, and I say unto thee, let my son go, that he may serve me. And if thou refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay thy son, even thy firstborn. Verse 24, and it came to pass by the way in the inn that the Lord met him and sought to kill him. Then Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and cast it at his feet and said, surely a bloody husband art thou to me. So he let him go. Then she said, a bloody husband thou art because of the circumcision. And the Lord said to Aaron, go into the wilderness to meet Moses. And he went and met him in the mount of God and kissed him. Now that whole happening right there is super interesting, because the first time I read through this, I know I saw this and I know I passed by it, but I'm also very confident that in all the years reading through this, I wasn't really paying attention. Did you catch what happened? In verse 24, and it came to pass by the way in the inn that the Lord met him and sought to kill him. I've seen some commentary on this, and I'm gonna have to come back to this, and I might do this. I'm gonna read past this because there's a lot I want to talk about there, and I might come back to this in the next podcast because there's a lot I want to deal with right there. Like that whole thing just threw me off when I read it. Verse 27, and the Lord said to Aaron, go into the wilderness to meet Moses. And he went and met him in the mount of God and kissed him. And Moses told Aaron all the words of the Lord who hath sent him, and all the signs which he had commanded him. And Moses and Aaron went and gathered together all the elders of the children of Israel. They got all the elders together, and they're getting ready to go down to have this meeting with Pharaoh. And Aaron spake all the words which the Lord had spoken unto Moses, and did the signs in the sight of the people. And the people believed, and when they heard the Lord had visited the children of Israel, and that he had looked upon their affliction, then they bowed their heads and worshiped. Immediately, once they found out what was going on, as a proper response, they bowed their heads and worship. But we also see, you remember, Moses was worried about whether the people would accept the things that he was saying, because he felt like the people were going to say, who's this cat and why should we listen to him? How do we know God has appeared to you? And God sent Moses to the children of Israel with these signs. And when they saw the signs, they believed. Just like I said in the Gospel of John, these people for many years haven't seen a prophet. They haven't heard from God. Moses shows up on the scene, does these wonders. So they're blown away at this point. Like, we've heard stories and accounts of the Most High God of heaven and earth, but we haven't seen his work firsthand. And now that we see his work firsthand, we know with assurance that Moses definitely heard from God. Every fear that Moses had, God dealt with that fear. Again, as I said before, the fearfulness of Moses, you can actually trace that all the way back to Abraham. So suffice it to say, it's clear to see when you look at what's going on in the Bible from the book of Genesis till now, that the things you do can affect your children and many generations moving forward. That's something that we all should think about. Those of us who have children, we should really pay attention to what we do. Anyway, y'all know what it is. Stay frosty, people.